Well, after such an introduction, this will be a top-notch panel for sure. So, hi, good morning, everyone. We're talking cleantech scalability at this panel, and I guess this is a hot topic nowadays. It is a hot topic also because Europe is set to become home of cleantech. You may know that Europe is a hotspot for early-stage cleantech innovation. However, it is scalability who's becoming Europe's Achilles heel, as Europe is responsible of the production of 30% of the scientific papers globally, but only of 7% of the innovations that get to market. So we need to double down there, and the issue and the opportunity at the same time is scalability. Now, at the same time, the global cleantech race is in full swing with the US Inflation Reduction Act, with China really making a dent into the cleantech deployment. And Europe, in this context, is now in the eye of the storm. So high stakes, high games. My name is Bianca Dragomir, and I lead Cleantech for Iberia, and our mission at Cleantech for Iberia is actually to speed up the cleantech deployment at scale. But in order to scale up cleantech, we need to orchestrate different levers of change. We need to orchestrate technology, capital, policy, and partnerships. So capital is really vital in this journey, and this is exactly what we're going to deal with at this panel. So we're going to talk to our wonderful speakers about how we leverage cleantech investments, how we bridge that last mile of bankability in cleantech projects, what are the success factors of financeable projects, and what's the role of grants, what's the role that equity plays in this space. So I would like to ask Mario, Irene, and Claudio to introduce themselves briefly and also to tell us how each of them are tackling cleantech scalability from their angle. Let's start with Mario.
Thank you, Bianca. Thanks for being here. It's really nice that such an important conference creates a space for cleantech to talk about this. As Bianca said, the challenge is massive in terms of making sure we avoid a climate disaster. So as Bianca said, Mario Fernandez, I'm the head of Catalyst at Breakthrough Energy. Breakthrough Energy was founded by Bill Gates to tackle the climate challenge. And the way we do it is in three forms. We discover these technologies through an incubator program called Fellows. Then we develop it through our very large ventures arm. And then we try to deploy it through Catalyst. And what this means is, as Bianca said, is when you look across the ecosystem and all of the startups in the hard tech world, right now they need a couple, tens of hundreds of millions of dollars of investment to make it work. But in very shortly, 3 to 5 years, they're going to need billions of dollars to be able to scale up. So what we do at Breakthrough Energy is try to catalyze those technologies to scale up and be able to bring much cheaper, more efficient infrastructure like capital in order for those technologies to be able to scale up.
Thanks, Mario. Irene, please.
Buenas tardes. My name is Irene Galvez. I'm heading the Cleantech Growth Capital team at the European Investment Bank. The European Investment Bank is the bank of the EU. It's owned by all of you, member states of the European Union. What we do in the team is we support cleantech innovators in their efforts of scaling up. Mario was just talking about the very high CapEx needs, and I think that's going to be a recurring theme in this panel. So we come in right when they've got a pilot that is working and they need to raise that capital. From the European Investment Bank, we provide that first leverage that helps this project cover the financing gap at a critical scale-up stage.
Fantastic. And we go with Claudio, please.
Thank you very much for having me here. It's a pleasure, to be here in such a conference, which is vibrating, and we see a lot of new startups, which are really, let's say, is exciting. I'm Claudio Spadaccini. I'm a founder and CEO at Energy Dome. I'm an entrepreneur. Energy Dome is let's say, is an hard tech intensive company It means that we have developed a technology which is based on such, let's say, a huge equipment, and it's our, let's say, one single product that we produce, which is the CO2 battery, is a big plant, which is a utility scale plant, and making innovation in such, let's say, industry is difficult because there are many, let's say, requirement of capital and many, many other things. And so talking about scaling up Cleantech to me is really essential and crucial for my daily job. So very happy to be here and talk about this together with Mario and Irene.
Wonderful. So welcome to the three of you. And Claudia, I would like to continue with you because indeed, Energy Dome is a great news for Cleantech and for Europe. So it's great to really see Cleantech scalability shining with your example. I would like to ask you, what are, you mentioned a few of the challenges, right, already, but can you expand on that? And also, how did you overcome these challenges in the journey to scalability?
Yeah. Thanks for the question, because it's a very good question. I think that, you know, for scalability, the main difficulty that we have met in our journey from the very beginning has been the access to capital, because as a hard tech intensive company, we really needed huge capital to demonstrate and to arrive to our first of a kind, which means to put in ground a plant, an example that demonstrates that the technology that we have innovated and we want to deploy is really ready to give to investors the result that they attend. So access to capital, starting from Europe, but even more from Italy, where we are based, has been very difficult because 4 years ago, when we started, there was no, let's say, the right environment, and venture capital were, let's say, much less present. So I think this has been one of the major problem that we faced, and we have, let's say, been able to go farther just due to some, let's say, friend entrepreneur. So we have been successful in some seed round. I have been able to raise the first 1 million and then 2.5 million, and then get ready for, let's say, a European venture fund. And then from that, we started our journey that fortunately later we will talk about, let's say, some good news that we had later also with the Breakthrough Energy Catalyst and the European Investment Bank. Another big point is the regulatory framework, which also that was not, let's say, ready to accelerate clean tech technology like us. And in that sense, I think that what was missed and is missed, but now we are building, is also to have the right way to communicate to the politicians in order to make the right, let's say, regulatory framework. In that sense, the Cleantech for Iberia here, and the Cleantech eventually for Italy, but the Cleantech for Europe in general is essential in order to be able to talk with the same language to the politicians in order to set the right framework to scale up the Cleantech technology. So I think that those have been the two major, let's say, obstacles that we have found in our journey.
Thank you, Claudio. And you mentioned first of a kind, and that leads me very nicely to Breakthrough Energy Catalyst and to Mario. I would like to ask you, Mario, can you expand a bit on what first of a kind projects mean? Because I think that that's your primary focus at Catalyst, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And just taking a step back on, again, you know, Claudio keeps referring to hard tech. And I think it's important to sort of show a little bit of the difference between hard tech and what we found here and the challenges versus software scale-up and development, right? In software scale-up and development, you can contract, you know, a whole bunch of people to do code, and you can iterate many, many times. You're interacting with the customer many times very early on. I think the challenge here for hard tech is you have, a science hypothesis, you take that to the lab, and then what do you do with that? How do you prove that it actually works? And as I said, with the end goal being infrastructure capital, the cheapest cost of capital, which is infrastructure and project finance, that set of investors or lenders really needs the technology to be proven. And what that means to us, at least the journey that we see companies go through, which Claudio went through, is you take it from the lab to a pilot, sort of call it 1x pilot. And then you have to go from there to a 10 to 20x demonstration project, right? Most of the time, those projects are extremely uneconomic. They're really hard to build. They've never been built before. And then after that, though, that's not good enough for those long-term investors. Rather, they want to see how many times have you deployed it? And they require many times to deploy it. So you go from demo to then another 10 times first of a kind, right? So you're talking about a pilot 1x to a first of a kind, call it 100 to 200x. And that's the journey that people have to go through. That's the journey that we at Breakthrough Catalyst, want to accompany people through and fund people, in the demo and the first of a kind. So that is the challenge. How do you get through that journey with the limited amount of money you have, and at the same time growing the whole time your company, your skill base, your knowledge, and your investor base. And that's why, that's what we do at Breakthrough Energy Catalyst.
Thank you. And Irene, you are the clean tech specialist at EIB. Why is it so difficult to scale up clean tech projects?
Well, again, the fact probably that there is a clean tech team at the European Investment Bank means that there is a need for a public sector involvement in this market gap or finance gap. So what we observe, and I think it's a bit resonating on what Claudio and Mario were saying, is that up to Series A, climate tech follows very much the playbook of a typical VC. They managed to be able to prove their tech out of, like Claudio was saying, the first million, the first 2.5 million, and then the mountain, Everest begins. In the issue with climate tech that we are observing from where we sit is that these companies are still at very early stages of risk. So there's still a journey to prove the economics of the technology to go, like Mario was saying, they're uneconomical. They need to build the demo and then the first of a kind. So they have very high risk. However, the tickets that they need are really too high for the typical venture capital funds. They are not ready because they're risky for infra funds to come in. And the returns overall that they offer at that very early stages are not hockey growth type returns either, because they're infra type assets. So it is really, that many times climate tech companies find two further valleys of death, from pilot to demo and from demo to first of a kind. And it is that market gap, that risk of falling between two chairs that we're actually trying to cover.
So how do we de-risk? You mentioned high risk. And actually resonate with this because, in Cleantech for Iberia Coalition, we have a network of investors, leading investors in Spain and Portugal. All of them bring more than €1 billion of combined funds to invest in net zero solutions. And basically, they are not being invested at the moment. And we understand this is due to the high risk that these hardware-intensive Cleantech projects and solutions are. So how do we de-risk, to both of you, maybe, to both Mario and yourself?
I'll start. So de-risking is exactly what Claudio is going to talk about, which is, he had the idea, he proved it at a demo scale, it works, then he could then, try to a bigger sort of plan. And then as investors start seeing this progress and are able to go visit the actual plant, just like we did, and say, hey, this works, right? So I do think, seeing is believing in this sector. And again, I want to let Claudio tell that story. But I think PowerPoint presentations are nice, but until you could take someone to a job site and say, look, it's being constructed or it's being constructed, this is how we're doing it, this is what we've learned, this is how we're going to operate it, I think it's really hard to consider de-risking in this sector, right? So I think that to me, sort of the proof is in the pudding, and that to me is the biggest thing to de-risking.
Irene, what
Maybe I'll just give it the problem is, I shouldn't say that, but I come from a bank, right? So I have a long list of how to de-risk, unfortunately. So I'm gonna try somebody out in the audience that, what's the takeaway, of this session. So I think the first one would be that, indeed, first of a kind, it is not just about tech risk, as Mario was saying. It is about project development. Sometimes it's about integrating a new business model for the first time. And for that, you need people, because technology companies are not developers, are not developing companies. And that is a skill in itself, and it is different. So either you need to hire for it, or you need to partner with somebody, ideally, that is willing to take a little bit of risk in the project and partake with you, but otherwise at least find that developer that can complement your tech knowledge. And then obviously if I don't say the word offtake, but then offtakes are very different grades and shades of offtakes. But demand is key. Customer demand is key. So when we are looking at providing venture debt, which is what we do at the European Investment Bank, the first thing that we're going to check with any of you guys, entrepreneurs out there, is there demand for what you're trying to produce? And if there is and is solid enough, maybe you can find someone that is willing to start signing some contracts with you called offtake. Different levels of stickiness, right? Some of them will be more fixed price and volume, some of them will be less, but that is where you need to begin the de-risking journey. And the last bit that I'll say is a bit to wrap it all up, versus maybe some other people out there, when it comes to climate tech, the Silicon Valley sort of culture of fail fast and break things is exactly the opposite of what we're looking for when you're building a project.
So how do we bring solutions to this? What kind of instruments does EIB and then maybe a Breakthrough Energy bring to really solve this?
So maybe I'll just begin and I'll let you speak about the partnership. So from the European Investment Bank, we've sort of diagnosed this gap, not only just for Cleantech, by the way, we also invest across different verticals. We've developed in partnership with the Commission a growth capital venture debt product. So what we do is we provide the first leverage as of TRL 6, so technology readiness level 6 and above. And venture debt is essentially, or the one that we provide is obviously not exactly commercial venture debt, is the EIB venture debt, is the patient capital that is able to accompany the growth of the technology, normally to TRL 8 or 9. So we provide a venture, it's a loan, exactly, that has to be paid back, but it can be, in a long maturity, and basically we partake with an upside in the performance, in the success of the venture, and that's exactly what we're trying to do. We come in as a complement to equity, so the idea will be that we help you get to the next equity round, and we're less dilutive, obviously, or non-dilutive compared to an additional equity round. So that's what we're trying to do. And I think that not only with the European Commission, but we also developed partnerships with the likes of Breakthrough Energy. So
So at Breakthrough Energy, again, in general, globally, what we do is we have $1.5 billion of capital. Half of that money is equity meant to first-of-a-kind, large-scale commercial projects, and then half of that is grant money meant to fund, again, uneconomical demonstration projects. The reason why we partner with the European Commission and EIB here in Europe is because we felt there was a great need for us to be present in Europe, and the combination of the two skill sets will really make our funds go farther and faster. So in terms of the partnership, again, the EU Catalyst partnership is a partnership with those three institutions. And what we want to do is, again, sort of double the dollars, be a one-stop shop that can fund, again, the growth, the step-ups in the scale-up path of the journey of these companies to be able to get people there. So Energy Dome was a great example of, we came in with a grant portion to fund that project, and then EIB and the European Commission came in with venture debt, right? On larger scale projects, we come in with equity, EIB can come in with quasi-equity for that. So again, I think those are the two products, demo and first of a kind, but the idea is always to tackle them together and to use, both of the three institutions' knowledge and rigor and expertise to be able to accelerate the path for this scale-up. And I know we're running out of time, but I do want to give Claudia an opportunity to see how this translates into real life. Because it does translate into real life, and I think this is a great example of how it does.
So I think it's exciting news indeed that this partnership was announced. And I would say this is a first-of-a-kind partnership, public-private partnership to really accelerate first-of-a-kind projects. Now, Claudio, tell us, how was this journey for you and what this meant for you actually to enter in this partnership with them?
You can be honest.
Yeah, I will. I will definitely be honest. And I have to say that for us it's paramount. It's really is a game changer. Because I'm really true on that. I think that the first of a kind deployment, so the capability to deploy a project which is just not tech, but is about how you execute the project, how you secure the project, how you make the project an example of bankability, because that is the target.
Exactly.
The target is to show to investors that in the future, around that technology, they can build business case which can accelerate the deployment of the technology to make impact in the market. So, and that is exactly what, let's say, this public-private partnership with the Breakthrough Energy Catalyst and the European Investment Bank has brought to us. So we have been able to build with them and with their guidance a project which obviously in the center has our technology and the demonstration of the technology, but also the demonstration that the technology can be deployed safe and in the right way without any pollution, and also all the project can be secured with the right offtake agreement and with all the contracts that make the business case a business case which can become attractive. Obviously, the grant portion has been important because there is a green price to start those. But I think that this is really something that for us has been, just a big surprise and, a very good surprise. So we are excited about that. Congratulations
again. And Mario, Irene, what stood out at the time when you looked for projects? What were the elements that made Energy Dome to be chosen? We start with Mario.
Why don't I start? I think there's two things, and for those of you out there who are trying to sort of stand up your own startups, the way investors like us see it, because we do consider ourselves investors, even if we put grant money, we still put you through the same rigor as an investor, and the Catalyst team is made up of infrastructure investors. That was sort of our past life. So with that lens, I think two of the main things we look to is, can the management team actually build a project of the size and scale that it requires, right? Construction is extremely hard. That the team has built billions of dollars. The Catalyst team has built billions of dollars of infrastructure projects in the past life, and we know a lot of what can go wrong. And I think having a management team that can recognize that and, as Irene said, get more skills or really learn that, I think is super important. And I think the other factor that we really care about is that singular focus in delivering that first project. As startup founders, there are many pressures for investors to sign MOUs, to be out on LinkedIn, to really show announcements, but, who is minding how the first project is being developed? So I think what has been great is, for Energy Dome, the management team, Claudio on and down, everyone has great expertise and great attitude. But second, there's been very much a collaboration where every time we say, Claudio, we need you to go this way, or we've seen it in the past, this can go wrong, etc. Claudio and his team is very willing to listen and say, okay, let us focus on that. And really, again, this drive towards getting the first project done. I met Claudio, a bit more than a year ago, and we sort of made it a mission to make this project. And you've broken ground already. You're going to fund our grant, etc. So it's been really impressive to see that singular focus and that addition of expertise, in addition to what the ones they have already, that's driving this through, and that's what we really want to see.
Okay, I've got to be brief, but it's hard because there were so many good things that ticked all of the boxes. So from my perspective, and also adding in a policy perspective, strong team, you mentioned, clear roadmap, so clear focus, ability to commercialize and scale. Super important. These technologies can be brilliant. If you can't commercialize and scale, they're not investable. So you need that to be able to invest. And from a policy perspective, guys, this guy is developing something that is going to help integrate renewables into the grid. This is what we need in Spain really badly. So the impact of his technology also weighing tremendously in our decision.
This looks like a partnership, like a match made in heaven, to be honest. But before we end, I would like to ask Mario, what can we expect from Catalyst? And I know there's many clean tech startups going on the journey of scale-up in Spain. How can they benefit from your program?
Sure. So we're very positive on Spain, actually. We love how resource-rich, renewable resource-rich it is. There's a culture of project development here through solar and wind that spread all over Latin America, for example, and the US that we really like. So we are super bullish on Spain. We do want to fund more projects. I think the regulation has to move, especially for energy storage. But we do want to help push and catalyze that risk-taking because we see a lot of potential and value here in Spain.
Well, thank you very much to the three of you. They say it takes two to tango, but I think here it takes three, and if we count the European Commission, it takes four to tango to make this wonderful innovation arrive to and land successfully to market. Thank you very much for your inspiring leadership, and we look forward to seeing more clean tech scale-ups into market.
Thank you, and thank you to South Summit.